Canary by Cloud9 and 3/4. Chapter 9. A Wild Ride. The past few weeks have been the best of Midoriya's life so far. And that wasn't even an exaggeration. He never had so much to say to his dad during their Friday video chats. He told him all about Shinso, Uraraka, and Ida, how his problems with muteness had finally begun to fade, discovering his quirk, the USJ, talking with President Mike, being on his radio show, becoming Canary. He had been pacing around the living room as he told his stories, speaking in such an animated way that he couldn't help but notice the shocked expressions of his prideful parents. It had been a while since he felt so happy. But it was strange being able to write the word Canary into an internet search engine and for results that didn't involve the bird or the island to appear. Of course, it had only been a one-time thing, so the mysterious being that was Canary wasn't that prevalent in the minds of the people of Japan. Being back at school again on Friday, it felt like everything was finally back to normal. He hung out with Shinso alone at lunch, bumped into Uraraka and Ida on their way back, who were walking with another of their Class 1A friends, who introduced herself as Please Call Me Tsu, Asui. They briefly talked about their resilient teacher being back to lead them, despite him being covered in bandages from the USJ attack. And they were on their way. Not a word about Canary was uttered in Midoriya's presence. In fact, the only reminder the situation had occurred at all was President Mike. The hero asked him to stay after class on Saturday, giving him a couple of business cards and phone numbers before inviting him to have a proper tour of his hero agency the following Sunday, which he graciously accepted. So, of course, Midoriya was surprised when during his Sunday dance class, his new alter ego was finally mentioned. Any of you guys listen to the radio on Thursday? Questioned Megumi, one of the very few remaining people in Midoriya's class. She was doing her stretches, sticking at her leg at horrendous angles, like it was nothing. Then again, that was her quirk, an impossible flexibility. No, replied Yuto. He was the only other boy apart from Midoriya. Then again, there were only 5 of them in total, so the genders were split pretty evenly, all things considered. Thursdays are boring, remember? Didn't we have this discussion like a couple of weeks ago? Yeah, but not this Thursday, Kazumi interjected. Oh, you listen too? Megumi replied excitably. Midoriya was watching her stretches with morbid fascination as he tuned his guitar. Wasn't Canary just the sweetest? Oh, he so was. Hey, Izuku, did you listen? Questioned Megumi. Midoriya hesitated before nodding in reply. It was as close to the truth as he was happy to get. Maybe you know Canary. He goes to UA after all. Oh, this is a future hero, I presume, asked the remaining member of the freestyle dance club, Mika. He wants to be, Megumi contradicted, but he's not on the hero course. He's got a singing quirk. Was all Mika said. All right, everybody, announced Miss Kita, their dance teacher who was still working despite being heavily pregnant. Have you finished stretching? The others nodded simultaneously as Midoriya's mind drifted away from the matter of Canary and back to his guitar. The Sunday dance lessons had always been Midoriya's favorite of the week. Saturdays were fine too, but they were right after school and often tired him out. The club was only allowed to run for half an hour on Sundays, and for as long as Midoriya could remember, the class had been impossibly small. And he'd been attending for years, even back when Miss Kita was still Miss Minami. He'd always liked their teacher, mainly because she knew sign language. His fellow dancers had changed over the last year, though. As they moved to different schools, they ran out of time, or in some cases, they had moved to a new house entirely, now being too far away to attend their humble lessons. Despite this, they were all on first-name basis, mainly because Megumi was too insistent, and no one bothered complaining. However, talking? Well, Midoriya had started suffering from his muteness problems before Megumi joined. Yuto wasn't that bad, but he felt awkward around the other girls, and for some reason, Midoriya as well. Kasumi had been there for a while, but she was very focused on dance, attending every class the little place had to offer. She often didn't speak at all, much like Midoriya, but grew a little friendlier once Megumi wormed her way into the girls' inner circle of friends. Mika was another story. Incredibly beautiful and a wonderful dancer, she was the newest of the lot. Midoriya used to speak to some of them, but that had been a long time ago, and since Miss Kita knew sign language, he had just slipped into the habit of not talking at all. It was the same group on a Saturday, excluding Yuto, who was too busy with pursuing a future career in medicine to keep dancing. Midoriya did dance on a Saturday, but on Sundays, well, this was why he enjoyed it so much. On Sundays, he played his instruments, whilst the others practiced their various routines to his tunes. He loved it. It allowed him to keep practicing despite giving up on his other lessons. It was the only reason he had kept going to both classes and not just dropped one. "You have your guitar this week, Izuku," realized Megumi, bouncing up and down. "I haven't seen the guitar in ages. I thought you prefer your violin." "I don't mind either," he signed in reply, and their teacher dutifully translated. She sat down beside him with a sigh, her hand on her growing belly. She had told them before that this was her favorite class of the week. They were just there for fun, excluding perhaps Kasumi, and were consequently very little work. She helped them with their choreography, improved their transitions and poise, gave them one-on-one tutorials if they so desired, but other than that, it was very easygoing. "What happened, Zoe?" frowned Mika, glancing at the burnt spots over the wooden instrument. Midoriya gave her a weak smile and shrugged, hoping she wouldn't pry further. He really didn't want to have to explain that he'd set the rain on fire. "Doesn't matter," interjected Megumi, who often came over as rude, although they all knew by this point that she never meant it. "What song are you going to play?" Midoriya hesitated, fiddling with the fret of his guitar in thought. "Do you know Pompeii?" asked Kasumi, who positioned herself beautifully in the center of the room. "We were doing a dance to it earlier. I could teach you all," she offered, eager at the chance to impress. "Dare you?" pressed Mika. Midoriya smiled and nodded in reply. He was trying to remember the first few chords when the door to the dance studio slammed open. "Sorry, I'm late!" screamed the newcomer, who tossed her bag across the room and slid to Midoriya's feet. His eyes caught the UA logo, and slowly but surely he raised his gaze to meet that of the intruder. Bright pink skin, short hair, little horns, and big black eyes. She was dressed in gym gear, tight-fitting leggings, and a loose top, implying a clear confidence in her form. The worst thing was, Midoriya recognized her! "Everyone, this is Mina Ashido. I'm the one who should be sorry. I almost forgot you were coming," smiled Miss Kita. "Hey, no problem, miss." "Miss Kita, lovely to meet you." The 5 members of the dance troupe stared at her, all completely frozen in rather bizarre positions. "Auntie, you too!" the pink exclaimed. "Hey guys! You can call me Mina, everyone does. I usually go to the dance place a couple of streets down, but then I saw a flyer about freestyle dance, and I was like, I'm so totally in. I do all sorts of stuff, but my studio was never offered a complete free-for-all. It just sounded so fun, so here I am." Kasumi glared at Mina, her nose held high, obviously disapproving of the newbie. "Hi!" exclaimed Megumi. "Sorry, you rather surprised us. Mika here's the newest of us all, but she's hung around for 4 months, so yeah, we're not that used to newcomers." Sorry!" she sung. She seemed to be in a good mood. "Gosh, I'm full of apologies recently. I just came back from my other dance class. My friend told me about this cute guy on the radio, and we were listening to it, and I completely forgot I was supposed to be here." "It seems we were both at fault," added Miss Kita. "Well, Mina, we were just about to start a new routine. Kasumi suggested Pompeii as the music. Do you have any other suggestions, or are you happy to begin?" "Oh, Pompeii! I know that song! It's great! Really powerful, you get me?" "Well," interjected Kasumi harshly, "Izuku's doing us a guitar cover, so it won't be exactly the same." Mina spun on her heel, turning to face Midoriya, processing his presence for the first time. "Hey! Have we met?" She began narrowing her eyes and pointing at him. Midoriya shrunk back nervously. Izuku is mute, snapped Kasumi. She was still posed, ready to begin the dance. Oh! Mina shouted suddenly. Oh my god! Do you go to UA? You know Ochako Uraraka? Midoriya was starting to pray for the world to swallow him up at this point. Cause she's my classmate! She said she had a friend in class 1C with green hair and freckles and who was selectively mute! It's you, isn't it? You go to UA? Questioned Yuto. Oh yeah! She replied. Midoriya sighed in relief as the attention was taken away from him. I'm in the heroics course, class 20! She exclaimed, punching the air. Isn't the class in that villain attack? The one and only! Mina answered with a hint of pride in her voice. She went on a rant about how they were all so totally terrified and how their teacher got all banged up, but still turned up for class the next day. That was when Kasumi cleared her throat pointedly. Do you think we could get on with the lesson? She snapped. We don't have long until our slot's up. Sure! What are we doing then? Just whatever? The hero student frowned. Well, I'm going to be showing the beginning of a dance that I have been working on in my ballet class. And the others were planning on mimicking some of the movements and adding their own style as the song progresses. That's how it usually works. Go now, Izuku. Midoriya wavered for a moment, eyes flicking between Mina and his older dance mates. He had felt so awkward and out of place at dance for a very long time. But despite that, he mustered the courage to sink into the familiar tune. Aww, Megumi exclaimed, his smile stretching across her face. This is one of those ones you know really well, isn't it? I love it when we find these. Like you said earlier, this is a little tamer than the original version, Kasumi. Acknowledged Ms. Kita, who was still struggling to untie the laces of her worn step shoes. So you might want to relax your movements a little. Make sure to keep up with the tempo. Her prized student nodded surely, returning to the starting pose, making sure Mina could see her superior stance. As the first verse began, Kasumi gracefully moved into her dance, her face serious and her body controlled. The others watched her intricate twists and turns in awe, quite a contrast to the fiery meaning behind the song. It wasn't long before Megumi pranced to her own corner of the room, copying her friend's dance in a near perfect mirror image, making up her own steps as she failed to predict what Kasumi would do next. As the song picked up, Yuto and Mika joined in. Yuto was as strong, and Mika was delicate. Together, they made a wonderful couple in dance, although Midoriya was sure that the two were never together romantically. Their dances tended to make him second guess. Mina was absolutely ecstatic. She clearly didn't know where to look. Her gaze rapidly changing direction as she flicked from Kasumi to Mika and the others. But then Midoriya caught her gaze in the mirrored walls, and her eyes were transfixed on only him and the way he played his guitar. She seemed to find it more entrancing than the grace the others portrayed. Then the chorus began, and Midoriya was rather stunned when it wasn't only Megumi's voice which filled the room, but Mina's as well. Neither of them were record label worthy, but they didn't seem to care. They were just enjoying themselves. Does it almost feel like you've been here before? They sung. Megumi was still dancing elegantly at Kasumi's side at this point, careful to give her friend enough space for her movements. Mina, meanwhile, was humming to herself, swaying back and forth and clicking her fingers in time to the beat. As soon as the chorus ended, the pink-skinned girl leapt into her own place in the hall with a surprisingly well-timed somersault. Her dance was far less graceful than the others, who were all following Kasumi's lead. Mina's movements were coordinated, but much faster, and even a little robotic. In your pose as the dust settled around us, the girl was breakdancing and somehow made it fit the music. It was quite a sight to behold. However, it was the music that Midoriya was focused on. He'd played the tune many times before, as Megumi had predicted, but never before had he felt so drawn to it. He didn't even realize he knew all the lyrics. But suddenly they were there waiting on the tip of his tongue. And as you close your eyes, Mina laughed, spinning and leaping in the joy she brought to the music. Midoriya so desperately wanted to join in to sing along. It was a strange feeling, new to him. It had been a long time since he'd had to stop himself from talking or singing. But that couldn't have been a good idea, to sing along. Not to this tune. No, he'd seen what he could do. Setting fire to the rain was bad enough. At least no one was around. If he started singing Pompeii in a small enclosed space with other people around, who knows what could happen? Could he turn them all to ash? Bring storm clouds of volcanic rock raining down upon them? Soon enough, the song came to an end, and the dance lesson drew to a close. Midoriya was packing away his guitar when Mina bounced over to him. "That was so cool!" she exclaimed. "You're super good at the guitar! I think I actually prefer your guitar version to the actual song!" Midoriya blushed and gave her a little bow. "Will you be coming back next week, Ashido?" questioned Miss Kita. "Sure! You guys do Saturdays too, right?" "We do. Will you consider coming to both?" "Well, if Saturdays are as awesome as today's lesson, then sure, I think I can make it." "Then we'll see you then." The pregnant woman smiled. Midoriya was walking out the door when Mina suddenly appeared by his side again after handing in her starting fee. "Chuck never mentioned you did music and dance," Mina acknowledged. "I know I've said it already, but it's really awesome." Midoriya hesitated. Mina stopped walking as he did, a frown stretching across her face as Midoriya pulled out his phone. He tapped on the Notes app and began to write. Once he was finished, he handed the device over to his new dance partner for her to read. "Can you not tell anyone at UA about this? I'd rather they didn't know," she read aloud. "Aw, but it's so sweet. I'm sure everyone would think the same way." Midoriya shook his head surely, taking his phone back. "Please," he added to the message. Mina sighed and smiled at him. "Fine! I'm on condition." He cocked his head to one side to show his interest. "You give me your number," she announced dramatically. Midoriya flushed red and grudgingly gave his phone back to her so she could get the necessary details of it. "There!" Mina exclaimed as she finished exchanging details. "Now I can talk without having to worry about speaking." He gave her a meek smile and texted, "Thank you," to her. "No problem," she laughed. "I gotta go, or I'll miss my train. See you in school, guitar boy." And with that, the terrifying encounter was over. Midoriya stood there in the street for a few moments, slowly getting over his anxiety. That was when his phone vibrated again. He expected it to be Mina, who had inputted her name as Alien Queen in his phone, something that he supposed would be her future hero name. But instead it was his mother. "Mom, where are you, Izuku? We're going to be late for the tour at the radio station." He gasped, fumbled with his phone, and then took off in the opposite direction to Mina as fast as his legs would carry him. His day wasn't quite over yet. His mom had been exaggerating when she said they would be late, as most mothers did. Midoriya still had time to change, have a shower, and even have a quick bite to eat before the two of them left to get the train. Soon enough, they were standing inside the Hero Agency, waiting by the reception's desk. "There he is!" Aozora exclaimed as the elevator doors opened and she hurried into view. "And you must be Mrs. Canary." She laughed. "Inko Midoriya, yes." "Yes, lovely to meet you." Inko smiled, shaking the blue woman's hand. "Your son has got a real knack for the radio, it seems," Aozora said, showing off her pointy teeth in a wide grin. "He's only been on one show, and our Thursday evening has never had so many replays online." "Really?" his mother replied in surprise. "Really?" said one of the receptionists, the one who liked to give Midoriya finger guns as he walked by. "People think you're sweet, and are kind of invested in your story." "My story?" Midoriya repeated without thinking about it. Yeah, said Ozora. You know I need more confidence so I can be brave enough to use my quirk in the biggest sporting event of the year and get into UA's hero course. She explained very quickly. And a future hero that sings? Yeah, honey, you're gonna have a fan base before you know it. Midoriya blushed and kicked at the floor. He was positive that he wouldn't be hanging around the radio station for long enough to get a fan base. Well, follow me, and we'll start our official tour. Aozora finished, leading them back over to the elevator. She was telling his mother all about the white noise theme that she'd shown Midoriya last time as she tapped various buttons in the elevator. We've got 15 floors here if you include ground level, she eventually explained. Some places are restricted. For example, floor 4 is for underground heroes only, and you need a special card to access it. If I tried tapping floor 4, I would need to swipe my access card here. She pulled out an orange card from her pocket and tried to do exactly that, but the whole system just glowed red and canceled the elevator's destination. See, I'm not cleared for it. I can go most places, but not to the hero floors. Floor 5 is for overground heroes. I go there occasionally, but I'm not cleared to visit by myself. She ended up taking them to floor 3, revealing the hustle and bustle of lunchtime activity in a sort of break room. Sometimes we get heroes coming here to have lunch, she explained. They're not even from our agency, just good friends from this part of town. Did you know that we're considered the best news company to deal with hero interviews? It's because of President Mike's overview. He makes sure we're not too intrusive, and consequently we get the most business. So where was the white noise team you mentioned? Inko asked curiously. Yeah, they're floors 7 and 8. I used to work there, so I still have clearance for floor 8, where they do all their call-ins and stuff, but floor 7's more private. Sometimes we take people there after they've run our emergency lines. It's really quite homey. Next, the elevator doors opened on floor 11. This is our news station, she proclaimed proudly. They didn't stay there long. There were a lot of people hurrying around frantically from room to room, clearly in a rush. We're pretty busy at the moment, Aozora admitted. We're the official radio hosts of the UA Sports Festival, and of course President Mike always does the commentary. They're gearing up at the moment, hyping up the public, getting resource ready, you know, the usual stuff. All this talk about the sports festival was giving Midoriya a headache. They were shown quite a few other floors after that, visiting the other radio areas as well as some of the offices. They even said hello to some of the heroes and sidekicks, which Midoriya was very happy about. Eventually, though, after having a quick look at the offices on the top floor, because Aozora had to pick up a few things from her place, they were back at familiar floor 13, where President Mike's radio show broadcasted from. They sat down in the waiting room outside the studio. Izuku and Inko sat together on one of the larger sofas, whilst Aozora sat opposite them, happily leaving a small stack of papers on the table between them. Don't mind that, she said as she caught Midoriya glancing at it. It's not all about you. That didn't do much to lessen his nerves. So, Aozora began, how did you find your little Thursday introduction to the radio world? Midoriya glanced between her and his mother hesitantly before giving her a slight shrug. I guess it wasn't as bad as I thought it would be. Inko smiled proudly at him. Midoriya wasn't sure if that was because he didn't downright say it was terrible and he never wanted to do it again, or if it was because he actually spoke. Midoriya was quite proud of himself for speaking, considering what had happened earlier that day. I'd say that was a positive response, Aozora concluded. She seemed rather pleased with herself. As you can see, Sundays aren't very busy here. Midoriya wouldn't have guessed. There are less people commuting, so let's listen to the radio. President Mike's out on patrol at the moment, but he should be back any minute to join us. Midoriya nodded in understanding. Anyways, I said earlier, you've got quite the potential as a little radio star. She grinned. UA Hero Course aside, you did well here regardless. Inko grasped her son's hand, sporting a wide smile on her face. You're new, Aozora continued to explain. People like new things from time to time. Then there's your whole story, like we said, and there's a certain mystery about you. Like, who is Canary? Did you know that question has been searched over 500 times over the last 3 days alone? And I seriously think that's an outdated number by now. I looked late last night. Midoriya blinked at her. It probably shouldn't have come as a surprise to him, but nevertheless it did. Moreover, she continued, waving Midoriya's surprise away, you're young! People your age listen to our radio mainly because of our music hours, and of course non-stop music Fridays. But when there's someone who they can relate to on the radio, then they're convinced to listen for a little longer, and they tell their friends, and then more people tune in. You see where I'm going with this? He nodded hesitantly, still a little shocked by how much they all seemed to like him. Basically, long story short, you're good for business. I know Present Mike brought you here to help build up your confidence, but now you've shown us what having someone like you on our show could do. We're more than happy to make this a permanent thing. The door was thrown open as Midoriya's mouth did the same. Hey! Oh! Cheered an all too familiar voice, and President Mike vaulted over the empty armchair beside Aozora, almost making it fall over and sinking into it with a sigh of relief. After a moment, he leaned forward, extending his hand to Midoriya's mother. Nice to meet you, Miss Midoriya! I'm President Mike, Izuku's homeroom teacher! He exclaimed. Inko shook his hand meekly as President Mike turned back to Aozora. What did I miss? We were just talking about why your trial run was a success. Aozora replied eagerly. Ah, yeah! He grinned widely. Did Aozora tell you about our white noise team? The three of them nodded. Well, I just checked in with them, and I'm not going to say much because it's a private matter, but someone who called in with a problem today said they tuned into our radio for the first time and heard the number to call for help only after hearing about it from all the talk about you, he announced dramatically. Midoriya stared. It took a moment to process his words. Really? Yeah! He grinned. So what do you say, Canary? Want to come back again? He exchanged looks with his mother, whose prideful grin and excited nod convinced him to follow suit and gave his mentor a determined nod. All three adults cheered for him. Phew! Aozora sighed. I was worried for a moment you were going to chicken out. Now that obstacle's out of the way, we've got one more to face. Present Mike continued, glancing at Aozora's pile of paperwork. Well, maybe two. Ah, yes, said the co-manager. The sports festival isn't far away, so if you want to build up your confidence enough in time, you might want to consider doing more shows than just the Thursday slot. More? If it's not too much, the blue-skinned woman added hastily. It shouldn't be, said Inko. You will have to keep Fridays free for your father to call in. He works abroad, she explained to them. Then, other than that, it's only Saturday and Sunday with dance class. You finished all your music lessons a while ago. Aozora gasped. Dance? Okay, you're just too good for this world. Izuku was growing redder by the second. What about Tuesdays? Interjected Present Mike. Aozora reached towards her papers, fumbled through them for a moment, and eventually located what looked like a schedule. You might end up having other guests alongside the two of you, but that shouldn't be too much of a problem as long as you get them to sign a non-disclosure agreement about Canary's identity, which I'm presuming you aren't going to reveal until the sport festival. She looked to Midoriya for the answer, who simply nodded in confirmation. Great. Same time on Tuesday then, that would work. How many shows is that before the sports festival then? The hero frowned. Well, the event itself is still a couple weeks away, right? I think so! You're hosting it! 2 weeks away! Right? Got it! Aozora sighed exasperatedly and turned back to Midoriya. That gives us 5 shows as long as you can join us on both Tuesdays and Thursdays. 6:30 to 7:30. After another look at his mother, Midoriya faltered before sealing his fate with a final affirmative nod. His two, co-workers, he supposed, were absolutely ecstatic. This is going to be awesome. Trust me on this one, Canary. Aozora grinned. Her smile was a little too wide to be natural. Maybe it had something to do with her focus. It turns out they had already planned on Midoriya saying yes and had nearly everything in place. The paperwork, which Aozora now spread across the desk for both Midoriyas to look over, was almost complete, only lacking the two's signatures here and there. As it turned out, President Mike had gone to Principal Nezu about the whole situation and had gotten official permission from the school to let Midoriya actually work at the radio station. Midoriya hadn't realized he was really getting a part-time job here, with a decent pay and everything. Well, at least it helped pay for his train tickets back and forth from the radio station, and perhaps he could start paying for his dance lessons too. Anything to help his mother out. It wasn't long before Canary was an official member of Put Your Hands Up Radio. Midoriya was clutching an orange card similar to Aozora's, as he was led all the way back down to reception, with clearance to all radio-related areas, and a particular door that the co-manager had yet to show him through. Now this, she grinned, is called the back door. She threw it open to reveal an ordinary corridor, leading all the way to the back of the building. I just realized I said that really dramatically, but I was being serious. It's literally the back door. As Izuku and Inko were signed out of the building, Aozora ushered them through the back door, closing it behind her. When she opened the final door at the end of the empty corridor, Midoriya didn't quite know what he had been expecting. It revealed a long metal staircase which made plenty of noise as they hurried down to a very narrow street, concealed behind the towering building amongst what seemed like ordinary residential buildings. The back door is a secret to the general public, Aozora told them in a theatrically hushed voice. So you're going to have to keep it quiet for us. It's a bit of a long-winded way into the building, but it avoids any hustle and bustle out front. It's especially useful for big-time celebrities who are trying to avoid the press at the main entrance to the agency. With that key card of yours, you can unlock it from the outside. I thought it might be a useful thing to show you, if you want to keep that secret identity of yours. She giggled. Before long, the three of them reached a rather quiet road lined with the occasional rather empty shop and one very quaint cafe. From the street, they could barely see the rooftop of the building they had just left behind. Not one of the few passers-by gave them a second glance as they went about their everyday lives. It was the perfect escape route for a busy hero. We can't thank you enough, said Inko, bowing before Aozora, and Izuku quickly did the same. No, thank you, she insisted, giving them a bow too. This is going to be a real wild ride. I can already tell, and I'm more than happy to be a part of it. I'm not sure if I am yet, Midoriya muttered. Aozora howled with laughter. Maybe she had super hearing. He had been very quiet. He didn't even realize he'd said that out loud, which was a revelation he hadn't come across in a while. Well, I'll see you on Tuesday then, Canary. Hey, check out the website tomorrow. We'll update it to show the new schedule as soon as we can. And without any more of a goodbye, satisfied Aozora turned on her heel and literally skipped back up the alleyway. The two Midoriyas stared at her for a moment or so, even after she had vanished from view. Ingo then pulled on Izuku's sleeve, tears budding at the corner of her eyes as she pulled him into a hug. She didn't say a word to express her feelings as they held each other there. Izuku melted into the warmth of her familiar hold, a wave of relief washing over him now the stress-invoking encounter had come to an end. But he couldn't help but let a smile creep across his face, for despite all his worries, he knew this was only the beginning. Or, in Azora's terminology, the beginning of a real wild ride. The song used in this chapter was Pompeii by Bastille.